And after the break now, it's my pleasure to introduce the new speaker, the next speaker to you. The next speaker is working on the Robust Internet project. Actually, he's leading the project. He's very much into open source, and he can tell a lot what this has to do with the technology of SBOM. So please welcome with an applause on stage, Olle Johansson. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Olle. I'm an application-aholic. Hi, oh, thank you. Let's do that again. I'm Olle, I'm an application-aholic. Perfect. I worked with applications all my life. Instead of really attending school, I wrote a basic program called The Cottage in Sweden. 10,000 lines and more of BASIC that was later sold as the first commercial computer game in Sweden for IBM PCs on diskettes. I worked with selling TCP/IP stacks. I imported software from the US. I've been open source developer. Asterisk, the open source PBX, you may know. Camelio, the open source C proxy. I've been involved in both of them. Mostly, I would say, coding in Asterisk because it was a piece of shit when I started. And then a lot of the community came in and fixed it. But I created the training, I created the conference, I created the certification for Asterisk. I've been involved, I've been there. After that, I worked a lot as a consultant. Worked with carriers, I worked with embedded systems, I worked with large-scale systems, I worked with emergency. Software, software, software. It's been an interesting journey, but the software industry is about to change. In the EU, in the US, in the UK, in many other places. I haven't heard about the state here, but you will surely try to regulate software industry as everyone else. Because there's a worldwide competition. I wasn't aware of that. But people in the EU, in Brussels, says, EU is leading the software regulation game. I'm like, okay. I didn't hear the news. I didn't watch the TV channels. There's something strange here. But this will change the way we work with software forever. We're going from a one-time sale with a contract that basically says, you can do whatever you want with this stuff I'm selling you, but I don't care and I'm not responsible, to a lifelong, for the product, relationship. As a manufacturer, we have to take care of the user's cybersecurity. We have to protect our users. We have to deliver free, no cost, security updates for the lifetime of the product. And as a manufacturer, under the Cyber Resilience Act, which is the name of this new legislation, I will be responsible for all components in my products, including the open source bits and pieces. This is such a huge change. Most manufacturers have no clue on what's inside of the product. I'm lactose intolerant. So when I buy food, I need to read the fine print. I need to really figure out whether or not there's any milk or dairy products inside. I'm also allergic to a Swedish software called CURL, curl. When I buy products at Amazon or in the electronic shops, I have no idea, or not even when I buy a car. I can't figure out whether curl is inside or not. I get rashes, I get red marks, and I get all kinds of stuff. Software transparency will be important. As a user and as a manufacturer, we need to know what's inside the software because we're building software in a whole new way today than before. I didn't hear anyone screaming. Log4j, when it happened, started a lot of interesting things. As an open source developer, having delivered Asterisk and Camellia and other pieces of software in many, many commercial projects, it crashed my weekend. I got calls and emails from customers that hadn't paid me a single penny for years, and they required immediate response over the weekend. And it was even worse for high-profile projects like Curl or others. Sign this contract. It's like, you're not my customer. I'm not your vendor. But this was such a high-profile issue, the Log4Shell issue in Log4j, that there was even on the TV in Sweden, in the normal news reports. And customers had no clue whether they had it or not. They had no clue of the ingredients in their IT infrastructure. And they were desperate to find out. And it took so many man-hours to figure this little thing out. Am I in danger? Do I have this? Where do I have it? How do I prioritize the fixes? We had no clue. This started a lot of work and also highlighted the need for something called the Software Bill of Materials, the SBOM. So there are a couple of questions here. Now, a few years later, are we ready for the next Log4j? I don't think we are. But because of all of this, a lot of new legislation is coming and our world is shifting. So are we ready to be regulated? I would say in most cases, no. This is a big surprise for many of the vendors I'm in contact with. They have no idea. And the clock is ticking. The first part of the CRA for countries with companies that sell to the European Union is in September 2026. At that point, they need vulnerability reporting and management for all products they ever sold that is still used there, and new products. Remember, for the installed base, September next year, coordinated vulnerability disclosure. They have to know if there's a Log4j inside. They have to have a software bill of materials. Next part, December 2027, December 10th. 1 month after the Nobel Prize party. Easy to remember, right? Okay. That's where the full legislation comes in. After that, you can't sell products without being compliant with the Cyber Resilience Act, meaning you have to survive DOS attacks. You have to have a software bill of materials. You have to make sure that whatever you sell have no known exploitable vulnerabilities inside. And there are huge damages. There are, I mean, of course, costs, millions in cost, but there's also the possibility of being stopped from distribution. Authorities telling you you're not allowed to sell this product anywhere within the union. So these are important things. This has happened to certain industries, like the medical industry in the US, car manufacturers, some others. So the industry is trying to figure this out. So what they're working on is trying to create a software bill of materials. And that's not really easy because I only got 25 minutes. Otherwise, I would have told you about all different types of software bill of materials. You have source code, you have runtime, you have execution, you have binary, you have build systems, test systems, other things. You need to map everything. You need to run this against vulnerability databases to check if you have any vulnerabilities in all your components. Do you have any dairy products inside? anything dangerous for your health, right? Then you get a long list. And looking at that in a proper way, I would say that 90% of that list doesn't affect you or your customers. The trick is knowing which ones that are important for you and you should spend your time on. And only a few of those are really high risk, or maybe none. Then you need to avoid the pressure from all concerned customers that also have your SBOM and start calling like Log4j, writing papers, wanting you to sign contracts, all that stuff. So we have another standard called VEX for a vendor to use to say, I looked into this, I don't believe you're in danger, or I looked into this, you're in danger, you need to upgrade now. Beautiful, right? Simple. I mean, let's do it. And then we have a coffee break until the next speaker. Well, we need, of course, automation for this to work. And at the core is this software bill of materials. The software bill of materials is like your family history tree. You have your product, you have the top-level components that you use, and those components bring in other components, right? So you build this tree. Now, suddenly, this little thing here that you never knew and didn't make any decision about have a critical vulnerability that will really affect your users. And that's why you need to see it all. You need to have the software bill of materials. And looking at vulnerabilities, a lot of the discussion is about these third-party dependencies. But you have to remember, you have to look into your own code. You have to manage your own code. You have to manage reports from customers and security researchers about your own code. That's important. But you will get these long lists, and you see a lot of this stuff isn't even in the code path. I'm not even using that. Then we have stuff in the code path that there are reports on the net that someone has found out ways to use this in bad ways. They're exploited already. And that's the high alert flag, really. Now you need to get going. But this stuff is managed by the process that we discussed. The black part is the elephant in the room. And that's really hard because it's about your coworkers and people, and let's forget about that. So let's try to summarize that. You need identifiers of software that we use to look up in vulnerability databases. So we need the same identifier on both sides, right? I mean, if I ask for Volvo and you answer about Saab, I mean, that doesn't make sense. If I ask for Volvo, you have to know what Volvo is and answer about Volvo. Okay. So we use the identifiers to look into the problems. So we need a clear identifier here. And we need more vulnerabilities. So far this year, the number of vulnerabilities has grown with about 50%. Last year, it grew more than 50% because the Linux kernel team suddenly decided that all their bugs are vulnerabilities. So from reporting nothing, they went to reporting, in average, 13 per working day. So now if you have an embedded system, you build something with Yocto, you release your own kernel, 13 issues a day you have to triage and discover whether or not they apply to your customer base. Building your own Linux system is hard. I talked with the security people at Red Hat about this, and they said, well, you know, I have 600 kernel developers worldwide. I barely can handle this. But we need more, because there are so many vulnerabilities out there not reported, especially in commercial products. We need a system that works, that scales, that we can trust. we need automation. I started looking at the Cyber Resilience Act from a product development team point of view, or when I switch hat, an open source development team point of view, trying to figure out what is needed and how can we work with this. I started learning about SBOMs and VEX and all that stuff. And there's a lot of missing pieces. But all of that will be solved by AI. You can go walk down one stair and they will see the glorious solution to everything, and we can take a coffee break. When you look at this as a consumer, from a consumer point of view, you have an asset inventory, all the stuff you have, software and hardware. You want SBOMs of all of that, right? You need to check all those SBOMs with a vulnerability database and start working with mitigation plans. Now, if you have a critical issue and this system is working, well, you can see that the printers on the second floor, they can be turned off because we have a serious bug in our e-commerce system, internet facing. Let's work with that first and solve the printers whenever we have time. That's fine. No one prints anymore. No one reads, by the way, so it doesn't matter anyhow. This is what we want, right? Isn't it beautiful? There's no energy in the room. Was there a shortage of food and drinks? Okay, let's look into the first problem, the vulnerability database. There's something called the National Vulnerability Database that we have been using for checking vulnerabilities. National not being Swiss or Swedish, means USA, the country that can't separate Sweden from Switzerland. When I'm in the US, they say, oh, it's a beautiful country with all the Alps and the chocolate and ABBA. Oh, yeah, right. Fine. The vulnerability database stopped working in February last year. We don't know why. They never said the truth about why nothing happened. They take input from another system called the CVE project. They add the product identifier. They add the scoring system. They add the category. And they add the products that are affected. This year, they've actually been starting again. They're covering about 50% of the CVEs. So if you're running your system with SBOMs and you check in the MVD, you're in the dark. Another problem is MVD made a decision about your product names in free text. Microsoft, comma, Inc., Microsoft, Inc., Microsoft, Inc. There's so many versions of Microsoft, and the number of versions in Office, I mean, it's stupid. It's stupid. But we're in the dark. The only way to solve this is to buy a commercial service, which doesn't help small and medium-sized enterprises that build stuff that will be affected by the Cyber Resilience Act. SBOMs, the link in between here, when they decide the name, so if you come up with a name in your SBOM saying this is Microsoft Office from Microsoft, Inc., the MVD responds no hits if you have a stupid name or if you have a proper name, but they have no CVs, you don't know. You have no clue. So many applications that create SBOMs for you, they add 15 different names. Guesswork. And tries to make sure you hit one of them, maybe. In my open source project, Camelio, we have a couple of CVs filed. We have not seen them. We don't know where they're coming from, and we don't understand the naming. But, well, it's a mess. Now, the links from your asset inventory, to your SBOM is also interesting. You buy a Olle Galactic Super Machine 2000 version 3 Swiss edition. What's the name that points to the proper SBOM for that? And what's the version number for that product with that name from one of my companies, so you find the right SBOM? We have a group in Ovasp called SBOM Forum, where we meet regularly and just talk about SBOMs. It's in a very convenient time for the US people, Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock, being 7 o'clock after dinner. You might protest by drinking a glass of wine and saying, hello, guys. They can't drink wine in the office at that time. But there is one person there from the Mayo Clinic who says, I have a pile of SBOMs on a hard disk drive, have no way to connect them to all the medical products I use in all the hospitals. There's no possible way I can get this to work. Are you getting depressed? The laws are coming. So we have a lot of red lights, but we still need the mitigation plan drawn from a hat and hope that we don't get the white rabbit. So we're in a state where defenders can't defend. We're in a state that we need to solve. And I say we, all of us need to work together to solve this and do it fast before regulators and standard writers come up with their own crazy system that will never work. We need interoperability and we need open standards. I worked with open standards all my life. I worked in the IETF, writing RFCs, commenting on RFCs, done interoperability testing for the session initiation protocol, voice over IP for years. It's hard work getting stuff to be interoperable. But that's what we want. If you buy a telephony system, you want to be able to buy any phone, not just phones from that manufacturer. So we need interoperability, we need open standards, we need open software to do this. And we need to work together. Conferences like this is just a starting point. And I tell you what I'm involved in and what we're doing in Ovasp. And of course, there are other organizations. I mentioned a few of them. The Cyclone DX project is a project that started off, created the first SBOM standard, Cyclone DX. We just released Cyclone DX 1.7. We keep expanding. So we had software bill of materials, we added hardware bill of materials, we added cryptographic bill of materials for post-quantum migration, which is another topic I can talk about for hours. I'm sorry, next speaker. 7 o'clock, does that work after dinner? We're adding a lot of interesting stuff in this project. We are in standard now. We formed a standard group within ECMA International here in your country called TC54, Software Transparency. So Cyclone DX is now an official standard. And it's a very open and pragmatic team. You can file bug reports, you can do proposals, you can join the meeting. Stuff happens. It happens fast. And there's a lot of software development going on around this. Many of the people working with Cyclone DX are also heavily involved in a piece of software from Ovasp, a flagship project called Dependency Track, which is SBOM management and vulnerability management in open source. A beautiful piece of software. And this is cool stuff. We just also announced the first ideas of the next generation, Cyclone DX 2.0. I won't go through all the details there, but it'll be so fabulous. You'll hear more about that soon. I started something because I saw that as a customer, I can't have staff logging into customer support portals, choosing a product, right-hand click, download SBOM, go somewhere else, to the Benzi track, click, 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 upload SBOM. We need automation. So we started a project within Cyclone DX and Ovast called the Transparency Exchange API. The project, before we had that name, needed a fuzzy animal. So we picked a koala, like, you know, the O'Reilly books. And when we named it tea, I never drink coffee, I only drink tea, so it fits me perfectly. We got this beautiful picture of a tea-drinking koala. This is also going to be TC54 standard, an ECMA standard, and we have a lot of cool stuff going on. We're soon releasing beta 2. In addition, we're working on the identifiers with package URLs, an ECMA standard soon. I think the first draft was accepted by the General Assembly this summer. It's unique identifiers of software set by the manufacturer or the open source project, not by a third party that has guesswork. The real people who know the name of their organization and their products. We also decided to standardize the life cycle enumeration changes that happens to our product. End of life, end of support, end of sales, all of that. We need that information when we run our asset inventory. There's something called the CLE, the Common Lifecycle Enumeration. It's all available out there if you search for it. So we're working to fix bits and pieces, but we still have the problem with the databases, the MVD and the CV. Now the European Union, because of these two, got funding to set up our own vulnerability database. Yay, wasn't that brilliant? As an open source developer or manufacturer, I want to report once. I want everyone to know. No one pays me to report in 15 different systems all around the world. But finally, they came out with the EUVD, and they import from the MVD and the CV and add an additional layer with the issues that are related to our legislation. So they still rely on that American funding. And this is a huge problem, I think. I've been thinking this for a few years when I started looking into this, that this can't be right, that a single state pays all of the work that we create legislation on. We depend on that work. But it's all funded somewhere else. And then Trump happened. MVD stopped working. Last year, or this year actually, we got an information about the CV project that they had 24 hours to live. Then the service would be shut down. After a few hours, there was a new message saying, oh, this was a budgetary issue, a miscommunication. But the whole world was in shock. And we still realize that they got funding for another year. Next year, March. What happens then? So we started something, and guess who got that in the knee? The Global Vulnerability Intelligence Platform Project. I've gathered a few organizations on the open source side, and we're trying to work with a boring long-term vision, not to fix the short-term issues, but we need to build a long-term boring organization that can manage this with multiple stakeholders around the globe and financing from more than a single state. And we're looking into different ways to handle the existing systems. We don't want to break them. We don't want to replace them. But we want to enhance them and have a unified API for software developers. I need interoperability here. I need open standards. I also been working with, I'm properly damaged and a bit evil. That's why I'm standing here in the dark side. I worked with public key infrastructure things for a long time, alongside with my work with IP telephony. Two words far apart, security and IP telephony. Anyway, I think we need different points of view to look at, and we need digital signatures on them or something so I can authenticate who's written what. about a particular CVE. But we also need agility. When someone reports something, it should not be blocked. It should be published in almost real time, possibly with a session initiation protocol. That's real time for you. I'm adding a few pointers for you. You can contact me personally through email or other things if you're interested. You'll get this presentation later on as well. So let's look back at this chain. Well, from OWASP, we're working with the Global Vulnerability Intelligence Platform. We have the Common Lifecycle Enumeration. We have the package URL. We have Cyclone DX for SBOM. Linux Foundation have SPDX, so there's basically 2 standards. And we have T to work here with connecting asset inventory with your SBOMs. So we're trying to work with this chain. We're trying to fix application security. So here's a few organizations you can go to and a conference, FOSDEM, a free open source conference that also covers a lot of application security nowadays. So look into these. They have calendars, they have Slack, they're all very open. We will take good care of you. They're very friendly, so don't be afraid. They will listen to you. And you can just sneak in and learn and listen for a while if you want to. You will learn a lot because there are experts in the room. And you will be part of the solution to this big mess that we are in. So the big question, are we ready for another Log4j? Not yet. We need to work on it. Are we ready to be regulated? No. Nothing is happening out there. People are scared about NIS2. They don't see the big CRA train coming. This will be very, very interesting times. We will have more conferences with more people that are in shock. And I'm running something called SBOM Europe together with an English friend, Anthony Harrison. We do trainings, we do webinars, we do a lot of different things. We're active in all these organizations. You'll see us everywhere. We also do consulting. And here you can find me.